Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel. Welcome back to our channel, history enthusiasts. Before we dive into the rise and fall of the Mongol Empire, also remember to hit the like button on this video for more fascinating historical content. Now, imagine a vast, rugged landscape, a seemingly endless expanse of grasslands under the wide open sky, the steppes of Mongolia. This harsh, unforgiving terrain was the cradle of a future empire, home to nomadic tribes who lived and fought under their own laws and leaders. It's hard to believe, isn't it, that from such a fragmented society would emerge one of the greatest empires in history. Our journey begins in this inhospitable land, on the cusp of the 12th century, where amidst the tribal conflicts and survival struggles, a future conqueror was born. A man who would change the course of history. Temujin, better known as Genghis Khan. But before he became the great Khan, he was just a boy, born into a world of chaos and conflict. It's here in these steppes that the seeds of an empire were sown, ready to grow into a force that would sweep across continents. So buckle up as we embark on this extraordinary journey of resilience, strategic genius, and revolutionary leadership that led to the birth of the Mongol Empire. Have you ever wondered how a nomadic tribe from the harsh steppes of Mongolia built one of the largest empires in history? This is the story of the Mongol Empire, an extraordinary chapter in human history that began in the 12th century. The steppes of Mongolia were home to nomadic tribes, each with their distinct identity and leadership. Among these tribes, a future conqueror was born, Temujin, who would later be known as Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan's life was a testament to the power of resilience and strategic genius. Born into a world of tribal warfare and harsh survival, he rose above the chaos to unite the Mongol tribes under a single banner. His leadership was revolutionary, not just in the sense of conquest, but in how he was able to bring together diverse tribes and forge them into a formidable force. But Genghis Khan's genius was not limited to leadership alone. He was an innovator in the art of war. His military strategies and tactics were ahead of his time and were key to his imperial ambitions. He developed a system of communication that allowed his armies to coordinate their attacks over vast distances. He employed psychological warfare, using fear as a weapon to weaken his enemies before his armies even reached their gates. His cavalry, light, nimble, and deadly, became a symbol of the Mongol might. Genghis Khan's empire was not built on brute force alone. He valued merit over lineage, promoted religious freedom, and introduced a written script to the Mongol language. These innovations laid the groundwork for a society that could sustain the vast empire he envisioned. As the 12th century drew to a close, the Mongol Empire was on the brink of an era of expansion. The tribes of Mongolia had been united under a single leader, a leader with the ambition and the tactical genius to take on the world. The stage was set for the Mongol Empire to spread its wings under the leadership of one of history's most renowned conquerors, Genghis Khan. From the vast plains of Mongolia, the Mongol hordes rode out, unstoppable and relentless. In the early 13th century, the Mongol Empire, under the leadership of Genghis Khan, began its rapid expansion. A man of humble beginnings, Genghis Khan rose to power through a combination of military acumen, ruthless tactics, and an uncanny ability to unite the Mongol tribes under one banner. The Mongols' military prowess was unparalleled. Their cavalry was the backbone of their forces, with each warrior adept in archery and horse riding. They could strike with the speed of a falcon, swooping down on their enemies before they even knew what hit them. The Mongols also revolutionized warfare with their use of psychological tactics, spreading fear and terror among their enemies to demoralize them before the battle even began. Their conquests were swift and brutal. In China, the Mongols toppled the Jin dynasty and established the Yuan dynasty, marking the first time a foreign power had ever ruled all of China. In Persia, they overthrew the Khwarezmian Empire, extending their influence into the heart of the Islamic world. By the middle of the 13th century, they had even reached Eastern Europe, sowing fear in the hearts of European rulers who had previously believed themselves safe from the Mongol threat. But the Mongols were not just conquerors. They were also savvy administrators who knew the value of tolerating the cultures and religions of the peoples they conquered. They adopted a policy of religious tolerance, allowing their subjects to practice their own religions, as long as they paid their taxes and obeyed Mongol laws. This policy not only helped to quell resistance, but also contributed to the flourishing of trade and cultural exchange within the empire, as people of different faiths and backgrounds could live and work together in relative peace. However, the Mongol Empire was not without its challenges. Succession disputes and internal strife threatened to tear the empire apart from within. Despite these issues, the Mongols managed to keep their vast empire together through a combination of strong leadership, flexible administration, and sheer force of will. At its zenith, the Mongol Empire was the largest contiguous land empire in history, stretching from the Pacific Ocean to Eastern Europe. It was an unmatched feat of expansion, a testament to the Mongols' military prowess, administrative skill, and sheer determination. From the vast steppes of Mongolia, the Mongol hordes had ridden out, unstoppable and relentless. They had conquered lands from China to Persia, from Russia to Eastern Europe. They had brought fear to their enemies and prosperity to their subjects. They had built an empire that, at its zenith, stretched from the Pacific Ocean to Eastern Europe, an unmatched feat of expansion. And yet, as with all empires, the sun had to set. The Mongols' golden age of conquest was about to give way to a period of decline and fragmentation, but that's a tale for another time. At its zenith, the Mongol Empire stretched from the Pacific Ocean to Eastern Europe, an unmatched feat of expansion. The Mongol Empire stood at the pinnacle of power, a vast dominion under the rule of the Great Khan. The empire was at its zenith during the reign of Kublai Khan, the fifth Great Khan, and the founder of the Yuan dynasty in China. This was a time when the Mongols' influence permeated every corner of the known world, from the steppes of Central Asia to the imperial courts of the Middle East and China. Kublai Khan, a man of both military prowess and cultural sophistication, expanded his rule beyond the traditional Mongolian borders, establishing a dynasty that would rule over China for nearly a century. This was no small feat, as China was a civilization with a history and culture that ran deep and wide. But Kublai Khan, with his keen understanding of governance and diplomacy, succeeded in fusing the Mongol warrior spirit with the refined culture of the Chinese. Under his rule, the Mongol Empire became a hub of international trade and cultural exchange, a melting pot of ideas, goods, and people. The Silk Road, an ancient trade route stretching from China to the Mediterranean, thrived under Mongol rule. This network of trade routes facilitated a remarkable period of cultural and economic exchange between the East and the West, and it was the Mongols who played a vital role in keeping this artery of commerce alive and well. The Mongols, once seen as ruthless conquerors, became patrons of the arts and sciences, embracing the cultures of the lands they had conquered. They fostered an environment of intellectual growth and cultural exchange that was unparalleled in the medieval world, creating a global culture that was far ahead of its time. But as the Mongol Empire reached the height of its power, the seeds of its decline had already been sown. Despite their military might, their vast territories, and their cultural sophistication, the Mongols were not invincible. The empire, stretched thin over vast distances, was about to face challenges from within and without. Despite the vastness of their empire, the Mongols were about to face challenges that even they could not overcome. What goes up must come down, and so it was with the Mongol Empire. Imagine a pendulum swinging. At the peak of its ascent, it holds a moment of stillness before the inevitable descent begins. Such was the fate of the Mongol Empire, the largest contiguous land empire the world had ever seen. The same forces that propelled it to dizzying heights began to tug it back down, marking the beginning of the end. The decline did not happen overnight. It was a gradual process, brewed in the cauldron of internal strife and succession disputes. The Mongol Empire's vastness was its crowning glory, yet it also proved to be its Achilles heel. Governing such an immense territory was an uphill battle, a strain that would eventually fracture the unity of the Mongol tribes. The death knell for the Mongols sounded with the passing of Kublai Khan in the late 13th century. A respected leader, Kublai's rule was marked by unprecedented expansion and the flourishing of culture. But his reign was not without controversy. His decision to shift the capital to China and adopt Chinese customs stirred resentment among the traditionalist Mongols. This created a divide that would deepen in the years following his death. Kublai's demise ignited a power struggle among his successors, each eager to claim the throne. The Mongol tradition of consensus-based succession was cast aside, replaced by bitter rivalries and bloodshed. The empire was being torn apart from within, its unity shattered. Meanwhile, the subjects of the empire were growing restless. The Mongol rule, once admired for its fairness and order, had become oppressive. Heavy taxation, forced labor, and cultural suppression fueled resentment among the conquered peoples. In China, This resentment culminated in a full-blown rebellion against Mongol rule. The Red Turban Rebellion, as it was known, was a significant blow to the Mongol Empire. It marked the beginning of the Ming dynasty and the end of Mongol rule in China. The Mongols, once the unstoppable force of the steppes, found themselves on the defensive. They were fighting a losing battle on multiple fronts, against their own internal divisions, against the vast territories they could no longer effectively govern, and against the rising tide of rebellion from the subjects they had once ruled with an iron fist. The mighty Mongol Empire, a symbol of power and conquest, was now a mere shadow of its former self. It was not a sudden fall, but a slow and painful decline, a crumbling monument to the transient nature of power and glory. As the pendulum completed its swing, the once formidable empire was left fragmented and weakened, its golden age a distant memory. The Mongols, who had once swept across the globe like a tempest, were now left picking up the pieces of their shattered empire. The mighty Mongol Empire, once feared and respected, was now a shadow of its former self. The sun had set on the Mongol Empire, but its legacy was far from forgotten. As the empire crumbled under the weight of internal strife and external pressures, the vast territories once under Mongol rule found themselves forging new paths. The collapse of the empire wasn't an abrupt end, but rather a slow dissipation, like the embers of a once roaring fire fading into a soft glow. Yet the Mongols had left an indelible mark on the pages of history, transforming the regions they once ruled. Their reign, though characterized by relentless conquest and often brutal rule, was also marked by a surprising amount of cultural exchange and economic development. The Mongols, in their unprecedented unification of the Eurasian landmass, had inadvertently set the stage for a transcontinental exchange of ideas and goods. This inadvertent intermingling of cultures led to a kind of globalization avant la lettre. In the realm of economics, the Mongols had established what can be likened to a medieval Silk Road, fostering trade and commerce across vast stretches of land. They had introduced standardized weights and measures, promoted free trade, and even instituted a paper currency system. In terms of politics, the Mongols had pioneered a form of governance that was surprisingly progressive for its time. They practiced religious tolerance, promoted meritocracy, and established efficient communication networks. These influences, though born out of a time of conquest and dominion, have transcended the boundaries of time. Today, we can see traces of Mongol rule in the cultural practices, economic systems, and political structures of many regions once under their sway. The legacy of the Mongols is a complex tapestry, woven with threads of brutality and enlightenment, conquest and culture, dominion and development. It serves as a potent reminder of the dual nature of empires, their capacity for destruction and their potential for progress. The Mongol Empire may have fallen, but its impact on world history is undeniable. The story of the Mongol Empire is a testament to the ebb and flow of history. Like the tides of the ocean, empires rise and fall, each leaving its unique mark on the annals of time. The Mongol Empire, born from the steppes of Central Asia, was no exception. It rose, it conquered, and it eventually fell. But not before reshaping the world in ways that are still evident today. In this grand narrative, we see parallels with other historical empires. The Roman Empire, the British Empire, the Ottoman Empire, each had its golden age, its moment of unrivaled power, and its eventual decline. This cyclical nature of history, the rise and fall of empires, is a constant reminder of the transient nature of power. The Mongol Empire, at its zenith, was an extraordinary force. It stretched from the Pacific Ocean to the heart of Europe, a feat unmatched by any other empire in history. Yet the seeds of its downfall were sown in the very fabric of its success. Its vastness, which was its strength, also became its weakness. As the empire grew, so did the challenges of governance, of maintaining unity, and of defending its sprawling borders. In the end, the Mongol Empire crumbled under the weight of its own might, a fate shared by many empires throughout history. But the story of the Mongol Empire is not merely a tale of rise and fall. It is, more importantly, a story of human endeavor, of ambition, resilience, and the indomitable spirit of humanity. The Mongols, a nomadic tribe from the unforgiving steppes of Central Asia, dared to dream big. They aspired to rule the world, and for a while they did. Their story is a reminder that nothing is impossible, that even the seemingly insurmountable can be overcome. As we reflect on the journey of the Mongol Empire, let's not forget the lessons it offers. It teaches us that power is fleeting, that it can be won and lost in the blink of an eye. It reminds us that success often carries the seeds of its own downfall. But perhaps the most important lesson, the one that resonates most deeply, is that the human spirit, in its quest for greatness, knows no bounds. In the course of this exploration, we have traversed the birth of an empire, its golden age of conquest, the height of its power, the beginning of its end, and its eventual fall and legacy. Each phase, each moment in its history has offered us insights into the dynamics of power, the complexities of governance, and the resilience of the human spirit. As we learn about the Mongol Empire, we are reminded that history, in its grand sweep, is a tale of rise and fall, of power won and lost, and of the indomitable spirit of humanity. This is the story of the Mongol Empire. This is the story of us, as we navigate the currents of history, riding the waves of rise and fall, forever propelled by the unyielding spirit of humanity.